Chapter 3 The Dark Side. Father Rively represented a safe haven from scary things. He held the power to forgive, his punishments were relatively painless, and he promised salvation, warning us of purgatory while emphasizing love. The island also presented with a competing message. Sorcery and dark spirits do exist, coming in many and changeable forms. Such stories were expressed even by my pious grandmother, who prayed with me before bedtime and escorted me to church daily at dawn. Ghosts and spirits are real. Magic can hurt you. Punishment can be capricious and severe. The very location of my grandparents' homestead served as a constant reminder. On the ocean side was a Christian cemetery long abandoned, home to spirits, and on the lagoon side stood the remains of a gnarled and ancient tree, sheltering a family of sea demons among its roots. Father Rively, what is the Holy Ghost? Does he live in the church? Does he fight for us? Does he always win? Storytelling. Mama and Auntie Nono regaled my cousins and me with epic tales of curses and spells, demons and devils, employing a visceral mix of narration, song, and chant, occasionally softened by a comforting hand. As moonbeams cast shadows across the floor and the thatch rustled in the breeze, we huddled, shivered, and cried. A rooster crowed. Mama and Auntie Nono's stories cemented bonds among us that remain unbroken to this day. Wishing to keep me safe, my grandmother determined to frighten me into staying close to home in darkness. Sea ghosts haunt our lagoon, coming out at night, dripping, rotting, and ominous, eager to pounce and eat us in their lairs. Stay close, or you'll be snatched. I was a sensitive boy who believed sea ghosts were real and ravenous. On those rare occasions when Mama traveled overnight to Wenham, I cuddled in my grandfather's arms, seeking solace. Page 54, Disobedient Child. Storytelling occurred nightly after homework and prayers, often including songs so familiar that we kids could sing along. Mama and Auntie Nono described many variations of the disobedient child, which must have worked because I generally stayed outside of trouble. Once upon a time there was a little boy who craved his mother's attention. My mother doesn't have time for me, the boy complained. She doesn't want me, he bemoaned. In actual fact, the boy's mother was preoccupied with trying to care for the family, cooking, cleaning, washing, weaving, and making salt. The boy decided to punish his mother for disregarding him. If she doesn't have time for me, then I'll paddle far away, he declared, launching his canoe. As he paddled away, he heard his mother sing, "Come home, my son, come home." Disregarding his mother's pleas, the boy paddled among a flock of seabirds who were fishing on the reef. "Fly with us," the seabirds beckoned. "I do not know how to fly," cried the boy. "We will teach you," assured the birds as they glued feathers onto the boy's body. Fearing that she had lost her son, The mother frantically sang, "I'm sorry, my son, if I neglected you." But as she spotted him far out in the lagoon, now covered in feathers, her child flew away with the birds. The boy traveled far across the water before he began to drop his feathers. Unable to stay aloft, he came to rest on a piece of driftwood. The birds asked, "What is wrong with you? Have you forgotten what we taught you?" The boy explained his regrets. "I was selfish to my mother. She had much work to do, and I did not offer to help." Before flying away, the birds announced, "You find yourself in deep trouble when you do not listen to your mother. So now you are going to die." The boy's death occurred so abruptly and heartlessly that by the time Mama and Auntie Nono reached the end, I was a total wreck, falling asleep, promising to always, always do my chores, and never, never to complain. Father Rively's gunfight at the OK Corral was entertaining, but it didn't hold a candle to the disobedient child. A story so compelling that I could hardly wait to suffer through it again and again. Page 57, Ghosts. My second to the youngest brother was the one in our family who spoke directly with ghosts. Our great-grandmother, long since deceased, would call my brother by name. I myself never experienced anything of the like until one night in the canoe house when I was 12 years old. Believing in ghosts was never an option. When people live on a small island with the remains and memories of ancestors dating back 1,000 years, spirits are tangible and real. Even Father Rively conceded the point. Ghosts could be anywhere, but we figured graveyards to be prime candidates. Families had taken to burials on their homesteads. All the more reason for us to stick to the public paths. There was a long, abandoned graveyard, not far from my grandparents. We kids didn't even want to glance in its direction. We did not have a hospital on Etal, so elders were likely to die at home. A day or two before, it was believed that their spirit vacated the body in search of a pathway to heaven. We avoided standing in the way. Page 59, Canoe House. Each of the clans maintained a canoe house. Large structures made of pandanus thatch, coconut beams, and fiber lashings. There were 10 or 12 such structures on the island, constructed by engineers practicing ancient trades. Each canoe house was strategically located on the lagoon side to serve both as shelters for the sailing canoes and fraternal gathering places. The men took up part-time residence in the canoe houses, where they played cards, swapped stories, and consumed an intoxicating brew made from sugar and yeast. Usually there was an adjacent cookhouse for grilling fish and breadfruit. Otherwise, food was delivered by carriers from home. Footnote: according to tradition, men shouldn't spend too much time at home, as they get in the way and otherwise disturb the domestic tranquility. Because my grandfather was a private person and nearly blind, he preferred to remain on our homestead with Mama, so my presence in the canoe house was limited. Nonetheless, my occasional nights spent there signaled my growing up. Page 60, The Visitation. On a clear and moonlit night, I found myself asleep in the canoe house. It must have been after midnight, as my older companions were asleep. The canoe house was open to the lagoon, allowing shadows to dance on floor and ceiling. Shells, paddles, and driftwood dangled from rafters, tinkling from a light breeze. The water on the shoreline breathed gently, lapping, becalming. Aware of something cold and rotting, I opened my eyes. To my horror, I discerned a pallid form hovering above, one arm draped over a rafter, an enormous warrior's head with top-knot, drooping eyelids, and lips stretched into a grim smile. Its eyes slowly moved as if looking about, seemingly unaware of my presence. I bit my cheek to stifle my screams. Later, how long I cannot say, I dared a second look. The village men lay about, still sleeping. I tried to scream, but couldn't, and as such, lay unmoving until dawn. At the first light of day, I awakened my companions and struggled to explain. "Someone's going to die," an uncle stated matter-of-factly, walking me home, still trembling, to my grandparents. My grandfather escorted me straight away to Auntie Nono's, where I was then able to provide a more coherent description. She administered a bitter concoction which I consumed without complaint, massaging my head and body with oil. "Go home to sleep," she commanded. "You will recover." An elder died several days later. I never discussed any of this with Father Rively. There was an unspoken understanding that such occurrences belonged to our culture, requiring traditional remedies, antecedent to the Christian authority of prayer. Page 63, Death of a Baby. We cherished our babies like gifts, never speaking of them in the third person, she or her, calling them instead by name. We had to be gentle in our language. Babies brought the best out in us. Everyone agreed. As Mama explained, when we respect a baby, the spirits respect them too. If we disrespect the baby, the spirits may take note. Who are these spirits, I wondered, too fearful to ask. Chuukese men don't cry openly at funerals. Crying and wailing is in the domain of women and girls. When my baby niece Gloria died, however, the men and boys shed tears. Gloria had seemed so healthy. Her parents were never again to be the same. The island gossip had it that spirits had performed a magic thing. I had to wonder, where would the spirits hide? What shapes and forms might they take? Would they show themselves in the church? Why would the spirits take a baby? Footnote: nowadays, when babies sicken or die, we look to medical explanations. A malfunctioning heart, leukemia, even SIDS. In my day, the collective assumption was that Gloria died because of magic and sorcery, forces beyond Father Rively's influence. Just as my buddies and I role-played priest and bishop, so too, we played ghosts and spirits. When the moon was full and the sky dome twinkled, we screamed, ran, and cowered, while my grandmother, inside the sanctuary of her thatch, prayed her rosary for my safe return.